There we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next event in our Ghouls virtual birthday party. Thank you for being here. This is Building a Community, How Horror Brings Us Together. My name's Ariel Powers-Schaub, or Ari Hellraiser, from Ghouls Magazine. I am the admin assistant for Ghouls and the brand manager and a contributor. So super excited to celebrate our birthday today. And we have some fantastic guests on this panel to represent horror communities. And so we're going to talk through that. So first, I'd like everybody to go around and introduce themselves, talk about what brought you to the horror community that you're representing today, and then we'll just have some conversations about communities and in horror. So, Tori, if I could start with you, will you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Tori Potenza. I'm a programmer for Brooklyn Horror Fest, as well as a writer and critic, and a new writer for Ghouls now that it's resurrected, which is very exciting.
Yes, we are so glad to have you as a ghoul. Katie, what about you?
So I'm Katie Evans. I am a psychotherapist, and I also get to travel around the kind of UK and Ireland talking about the psychology of horror movies. So all the stuff that kind of draws us to it, how it connects to our subconscious, how it shows us ourselves and the world that we live in. And I get to meet people traveling around doing that.
That sounds honestly like a dream job. So that's awesome.
It actually is. It's actually the
That's
dream,
so
although
cool
I
that
can't
you
even
can
get paid to do it. It's cool.
Incredible. Yeah. Emily.
Hey, so I'm one half of the Nottingham Horror Collective. So me and Ruth create zines basically and books now for horror fans, by horror fans. Yeah, just keeping independent print publishing alive and kicking, hopefully.
We love a book. We love a zine. We love any type of horror story or horror analysis that we can get out there. Ruth, do you want to add anything to that?
Hi, I'm Ruth. I do the design for the Nottingham Horror Collective. Yeah, we've been doing this for 5 years now and sort of built up an amazing community around us, including Tori, who's one of our contributors. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Incredible. And over to Sick Girl Films.
Hi, we probably should have put our names. Sorry. I'm Olivia. This is Lucy. Yeah, we're Sick Girl Films, so we set up like a regular horror film screenings, specifically kind of catered to people with any kind of disability, because that's kind of how we fell in love with horror, is kind of bonded over seeing ourselves in like people
horrible situations.
Yes.
Yeah, but we are based in London as well.
Okay. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. We love seeing ourselves in horrible situations that aren't really ours on screen. So, we're all representing horror communities and we're all a part of the larger horror community, as it were. So I'm curious to know how you all found your personal horror communities, the one that you're representing today, or ones that maybe aren't explicitly here today, but your own personal horror communities. So Ruth, if I could start with you.
Yeah, so I started doing some illustration work that was based on especially that sort of early 2010s time of the horror boom, sort of A24, Hereditary, Midsummer, The Witch. It really inspired me to do a lot of illustration work. And at the time, of course, there was the burgeoning pandemic, the P word, appearing. And because of that, me and Emily couldn't hang out as much as we used to. So yeah, we created a zine together that kind of snowballed after the first issue. And now we've got contributors from all over the world. So that's very much the community that I feel the most connected with, but also personally more the like horror game, video gaming industry and community is very much something that I hold close to my chest as well.
Yeah. Ghouls also grew out of the pandemic lockdown and needing to find more community in more different places. And so I can really relate to how that came to be. Emily, what about you and your community?
Yeah, I think it was just really organic. I mean, Nottingham here has always had one of the most vibrant and sort of generous creative communities. We literally love it so much here. And as Ruth said, yeah, we began the Nottingham Horror Collective during lockdown. Something small, DIY, more for our friends than anything. There wasn't really a grand plan. It was just we wanted to find like-minded people, find our community, and also just create something cool together to stop ourselves from losing our minds during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And over time, I guess that kind of naturally attracted like-minded people. And I think Nottingham in particular has such a rich arts and especially even horror culture, slight bias, but we like to say that it's the heart of UK horror at the minute. There are so many collectives and spaces here that sort of actively nurture the genre. Mayhem Film Festival, which I also work with, that is at Broadway every October. It's a big long weekend of horror and cult cinema, which is really cool. Monstrous Flesh Collective, we've got Clelia and Meg. Fortune and Glory Film Club, Dead Duck Film Club. We've got loads here, basically, and Broadway Cinema in particular. They've always been incredibly supportive of sort of horror programming, indulging us in even some of our wildest film choices to screen for our events. So we did Jennifer's Body, which is this poster here. That was our first one. We also did Evil Dead, Rosemary's Baby, Jew on the Grudge, and Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, which was incredible. Seeing that in a room full of people, just
my God.
Yeah, shared trauma. It was incredible. So yeah, it seems to just organically flow here, basically, and as a result, it's kind of flown out from Nottingham, and now we've got contributors from all over the world, which is incredible.
Oh my gosh, I'm a little bit jealous of how that sounds. That sounds incredible. And you say it came up organically, and I'm sure that it did, but it also must have taken a lot of work too. And yeah. I could see being in such an active horror location. Not that there's a lot of competition, but there's a way you got to find your niche in there, right? And so the fact that you were able to do that is pretty incredible.
Yeah, we all support each other as well. We all have a big group chat. It's like, oh, we're putting this screening on. Can you share it? Kind of thing.
That's wonderful.
It's really nice.
Yeah,
I think we should also. It would be nice to also shout out. I think one of the only horror shorts film festivals in the world, Huldra, that's run by our lovely friends Dan and Kim. They put on the best horror shorts film. Yeah. In the middle of the woods. Weather permitting, it is one of the scariest. I mean, it's my absolute favorite day of the year. And if anyone fancies coming all the way to Nottingham for that, I highly, highly recommend it.
Everybody watching's taking notes about all the festivals and incredible events.
So good.
Huldra.
So Olivia and Lucy, what about you? How did you find your personal horror communities and the one that you founded?
Yeah, I think for us, part of the reason we set up Sick Girl Films was because actually we were really struggling to find something that fit us, because we actually became really close by watching horror films together and finding that sense of catharsis as two people who were experiencing quite a lot of physical and emotional pain. And it made us want to find more people who were also using films in that way, especially horror films in that way. I think I grew up loving Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I remember watching it in a hospital bed when I was 14, and that was such a transformative thing for me. And I think I knew there must be other people out there who were doing the same thing as us. So one of the key moments in our friendship was actually going to see Eraserhead together. And I think it says a lot about us that such a key part of us bonding was that we both loved that horrible little nightmare, and we could both see so much of ourselves in it. So we kind of felt it was kind of almost like our duty to find other people who were also feeling really isolated,
and
wanted to have like a comfortable space to feel things.
I think the thing about chronic illness that is quite hard to explain and people don't really know about is like how isolating it is. Like, you literally can't fucking go anywhere because like it's too far. Like, really small things, like, you know, the walk from the place to the station is just too long, so by the time you get there you're just gonna fall asleep. Like, things like that. So, you know, we wanted to set up like a film space that was like where you don't have to worry. There's so much to consider when you have a chronic illness, when you have a disability. Like, are you literally going to fit in the space? Like, can you actually sit down? Can you even go to the toilet? Like, little things like that. So like, we thought it was really niche and we were going to get like 5 people and that was enough, and it's just kind of like lots of people have kind of said, oh no, this has been really needed. And yeah, we set up a community because we didn't have one.
And like the first thing we showed was Ginger Snaps, which we showed last month, and we actually got to introduce it to so many people who had never seen it. And it was like, amazing just like standing in front of that room and talking to people and seeing so many like visibly disabled people that like didn't often get to go out to stuff, and actually like seeing themselves in like the body horror of this like really bizarre little Canadian film that could. And I think that was just such a special thing for us. So yeah, just like being able to introduce these worlds to people who didn't even know that they were out there, it has just been like a really special thing for us, I think.
Yeah.
It's so important to have an accessible community, because what's the purpose of community if people can't access it? And it reminds me, what you two are doing reminds me of what fellow ghoul Ariel Basca is doing with Access Horror in the United States. And, you know, you said you called them little things, and it's, I know you mean like they seem little when they're not for you, like being able to use the restroom or being able to fit in the space. And those are baseline, like to be at an event, those are absolutely necessary. And when they're not considered, we are leaving out horror fans who could be a part of our community. And so it just sounds incredible what you're doing and incredibly important.
Thank you.
Yeah. Katie, what about you and your community?
So I guess my core came from like my friends as teenagers, just kind of bonding over being little weird kids, little goths in Liverpool, and kind of finding a place to belong in that when it didn't always feel the safest, if I'm honest. And we still share films and horror conventions now. In terms of spooky therapists, it was a little trickier because we tend to exist in like box offices alone, not box offices like theatre, like little home offices alone. Right. Chatting to kind of clients. But I started again during lockdown. I think the kind of pandemic was a big place for community to start. During that, I started a podcast called Mental Health Monsters, which is where the name came from. And it was using kind of universal classic monsters to help us understand our mental health. I'm a big monster kid, big monster fan, big mental health, enthusiast, and for talking about the stuff we're going through. And it was just getting people together to talk about what they were struggling with and to find a place to kind of tell our stories and how horror's helped us and how monsters helped us see ourselves or see ourselves within the world. And that was just an amazing experience. And I made a lot of friends. I connected with a lot of people. Because I think a lot of us do share kind of going through some difficult stuff on our own sometimes. So finding a place to actually go and talk about it and sharing it and find the light in it. Because the good thing about horror is it offers the dark and the light, right? So we can kind of bring it in together. And then doing the talks now, I get to do that on a bigger scale. Like I get to go all around the place. Can't wait to get to Nottingham, by the way. Even more excited now after hearing all of that. Yes.
I do have a ticket to that event, so I will be seeing you next month.
Fantastic. I love that. Thank you. But and go around and get to meet so many people. And then you get to do a Q&A at the end and chat to people. And then just at the end, hovering around. And people want to come up and talk to you and tell you their stories about horror and mental health and how it helped them. And so many of us share. I struggled with mental health so much when I was younger and kind of dealt with it on my own with my movies. And I was like, okay, we can all kind of do that together. We found a place to belong, which I guess is where community is so important, is that belonging, right? So, it's been amazing. It's building up all the time. I just love it. Absolutely love it.
It's one of those things where it can feel like such a personal endeavor, and it's personal, but when you realize someone else out there has a similar feeling to you or went through a similar thing, it's like instant community.
Absolutely. And it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Just that kind of realization that I'm not alone, so powerful.
Mm-hmm. And Tori, what about you?
Yeah. Sorry. It's like 8 a.m. here or 9 a.m. here. So still waking up a little bit.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I know. So I started writing about like film and horror around 2018, just as like something to do after grad school, because I'm a nerd and needed to continue finding reasons to write nerdy essays. But I think it was really like a lot of people said, like the pandemic, I think helped at least with, we were isolated in our homes, but really leaning on like community of people on the internet and like following any like cool, creepy, like especially femme in horror I could, and just finding people that way. That's how I became friends with like a lot of y'all and ghouls, and found cool writing opportunities like with Nottingham. And that's felt like it felt like what I needed during the pandemic, but now I just feel like I have such an incredible network of people all over the world, which is a really exciting feeling. And before I started working at Brooklyn Horror Fest, I went there a couple years like after like the pandemic was kind of coming out of like the complete isolation time, and it was the first festival that I traveled to. And being in person and being kind of a socially awkward person, I was like, oh no, I don't know how to like go and talk to people. And I think luckily I ran into a few people that were just really generous and wanted to like bring me into the space. And because of that, I think that's something I try to pay forward all the time too. And now that I get to work at Brooklyn Horror Fest, I think that's something that I really try to focus on. Like, I'm lucky that there's already such a great community there, and now it just feels like it's my duty to continue that work and see how we can make things like more diverse, more accessible, and really just like bring in as many amazing people into this weirdo community as possible.
Right. It's not like there's a capacity limit on the horror community or smaller horror communities. They can be and should be as big as we can possibly get them.
Yes,
so I love
absolutely.
that. And kind of along those lines, the next thing I wanted to talk about is, what is it about horror that brings people together? Why this genre specifically that we love so much? And Katie, if you don't mind kicking this off.
Sure. I mean, I think some of this was probably covered in the earlier chat, if anyone was there as well, really beautifully. But I think it is like it's a subversive art form. It's something that challenges. And I think when there is subversive art forms, it draws us to them if we see the world in a certain way. So even things like, punk music and stuff like that as well, right? If it kind of matches your framework of the way you see the world, it draws you in and you want to meet people around it. And I think it does reflect our kind of, perhaps we see the world a little differently. It is a lot around difference. It is a lot around otherness. If there's ever been an experience of that, it can kind of provide a comfort. Don't get me wrong, it's not always been perfect in the way it's approached things, but it's definitely offered a place to kind of connect with feeling of otherness or difference. And I was actually writing about this the other day because I'm doing a new talk and writing around parallels between like horror movies and queer theory and activism, and the kind of similarities, right, of like fighting against structures or challenging structures and embracing kind of difference or confronting and utilizing sort of a particular kind of imagery or something that could be seen as quite forceful in a way of actually looking at things that are really important to look at and kind of shattering structures or challenging structures that we live within. It's definitely got a way of kind of looking at the world differently and the things that we live within that can make it difficult for us. It allows us to see our trauma. And I think there is something that if we kind of feel connected in that world or we felt a certain way because of it, it really kind of brings us in, but also has this kind of openness to accepting because of its approach to kind of difference and otherness and the way it looks at structures and sees the structures, right? Not every art form actually sees the structures, and this does. So while it looks like just splatter and gore, right, it's actually showing us some really important stuff around the world and perhaps changes we want to make or things we want to confront, and about ourselves too. And I think that's it. I think it's a very important art form. I do think, you know, there's this whole stuff around if you like Terrify, you're a psychopath. I actually think that's nonsense. I think there's a whole lot of empathy, you know, that people have when they go into horror movies, and a whole lot of actually seeing the pain in the world and connecting.
So by pointing out things in the world that we all notice, it gives us a point of connection.
Yes. Yeah. And we know that, I mean, look, everyone's different. There will be lots of different people who go to horror for different reasons, but there is a sense of we all kind of get it here, but we all kind of, you know, we see this in a similar way.
Olivia and Lucy, what do you think about why does horror bring people together?
I mean, I think we're quite obsessed with the idea of like how horror gives trauma a language, and like horror is the perfect genre for kind of expressing the inexpressible, because it's all metaphor, you know, like, you know, it crosses over very quickly, you know, with like fantastical things, and, you know, like they kind of go hand in hand. And like people talk a lot about like the sense of relief that comes with horror, you know, like they build up the tension, then you have that release. It's like laughing. It's like, you know, but I think also you get a sense of relief because you've been able to see something that is so impossible to articulate. And, you know, we recently watched the film His House, which was absolutely amazing. And it's just about a situation, you know, which is so horrific and traumatizing that there just aren't words for it. And then you kind of see it depicted so beautifully. And I think also, horror is so overlooked. Anyone who kind of feels overlooked or feels like a bit of an underdog, I think they feel like an affiliation with it. And it's also the place, you know, where like people get started, like, you know, how many early, like how many directors, like their first film was a horror film, and like it's a place where you can kind of experiment, and it's almost like kind of because no one's looking, because it's so overlooked, like you can, you know, just say like, fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want.
That kind of DIY ethos is like
and again, like there's huge crossover with like horror and punk music, which like we've talked about a bit. And even though it's actually kind of got some of the most like complex themes, it's still kind of enjoyable, and it's so hard to get that right with like really, really complex themes. It's really hard to articulate and make it really fun and enjoyable, and like horror is one of the very few things that does that really well. And like I think that's why people want to stick up for it so much, is because like it gives people the most out of like any kind of other genre. I mean, that's what I think. That's what I believe.
But I think it's almost like it's more almost like one of the most inclusive genres, specifically because it kind of allows us to talk about the stuff that we can't usually talk about or we can't usually like express, and because of that, like so many of us can see ourselves reflected in it, and I think that's special.
When you feel like a weirdo, when you feel like an other, you can go to horror and find all the other weirdos that, you know, are just like you or slightly different, and feel like you've got that community built in.
Yeah, we are the weirdos, mister.
Exactly. Exactly. Tori, what about you? Why do you think horror brings people together?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like I really got into horror until my 20s. I felt like I was kind of a scaredy cat for a lot of my life. And growing up like around the 2000s, when a lot of like that sort of horror that Ari has written about so beautifully, Millennial Nasties, was coming out, it was so like icky to me that I was like, oh, I don't think this is for me. But I always liked thrillers and those kind of things. And definitely like growing up as kind of like an outcast, nerdy, like emo kid, I think it was that thing of just like when you're part of one of these like counterculture movements, you just kind of gravitate towards other people that are part of that too. You're like, oh, cool. You're like one of me. Great. And then, you know, I think getting into horror a lot in my 20s was because I was realizing I had anxiety and some other like mental health issues and stuff. And I found a lot of comfort in watching horror films, and I think it gave me a way to process a lot of the things I was going through. And I think now that I'm like in my 30s and doing a lot of like in therapy, like underworlds kind of work, and just trying to like really look at my own kind of darkness and ick and stuff that I thought was like unlikable, unlovable, whatever. I realize how much of the light that brings in when you can like look at the darkness, you can like appreciate and see the light so more clearly. And I think that horror is like the perfect space for that. Like a lot of people have been saying so wonderfully. You know, we get to process trauma and things we've gone through in a way that feels safe. And when you see other people that are, you know, watching those things and feeling the same way as you and feeling seen, I think it tells you a lot about that person, and it gives you a deeper way to connect. Like I just saw The Witch Who Came from the Sea last night because my friend Peyton was introducing it, and like watching that movie, I was just like, it's that house of psychotic women, kind of like, oh my God, thank God there are other women that feel this crazy and strange as me. So yeah, I just think it's the best space for all of this. Yeah.
When you figure out how to know yourself and accept yourself more, you can then be more accepting of others and widen your community when you've already gotten to know yourself and you say, okay, the horrors within me are fine. I can accept the horrors within you. Let's be
Yes.
horrible together. And big shout out to House of Psychotic Women for that vibe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ruth, what about you? Why does horror bring people together?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked the question again, because I think my ADHD brain has forgotten it like 5 times in the past 10 minutes. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, it feels like horror is often less horrific than real life a lot of the time. And yeah, it's safe to say, just like Tori said, we all feel very comforted by horror. I think the first time I watched Hereditary in the cinema, obviously it's the perfect film of the modern age to sort of represent trauma, grief. I was listening to the talk before, and there was a lot of talk around that. But I think when I first watched that, I realized just how effed up my life had been. With my family and the generational things that had happened. I used to like collect spiders when I was a little kid, and
Sure,
kids,
yeah.
all the neighbors were like, "What is wrong with you? I don't understand." Like, I was definitely quite the outcast as a kid, and it wasn't until later on in life I realized just how much I must have put everyone off. But yeah, I still have that like love and draw to things that just freak me out, because like I said, it almost feels safer than the reality of what's going on. And I think it has just been so amazing into my later adult life, realizing that I'm not the only person who feels that way, and all of us here feel that way, and it's like so liberating and so validating. But yeah, it like I say, it wasn't until recently I realized just how weird that I was as a kid. I don't know how everyone else feels, but yeah, I would say that's the big thing. It's that feeling of comfort. And when we all spend, you know, when we've put screenings on at Broadway, it's felt like we're in a room full of just people that we can hold close, and that feeling of like belonging is just like, you can't really put it into words, can you?
Right. You know, if they didn't love you at your spider collecting, they don't deserve you at your horror hosting. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, how many
Exactly.
of us? I'm sure we were all weird kids. Yeah.
Yes.
And Emily, what about you? Why horror? Why does horror bring us together?
Well, I think it's an inherently like social watching experience, isn't it? So some of my earliest memories are watching horror at sleepovers, staying up too late with my friends, all of us sort of pretending that we're not scared. And there's not really any viewing experience like that. Not that what I've experienced anyway. People don't often like to watch horror alone, although I am a freak and I do that. But half the joy is the shared reaction, isn't it? It's the squirming and the laughing, the collective sort of like gasp when something really horrific happens. For me personally, horror was very much a family thing. I used to watch horror with my mum and my nan and my brother, my stepsister. So every Friday we'd go to Blockbuster and pick out the film that looked the most disturbing. I have a vivid memory of my mum picking up The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and my name is Emily Rose, and going, we're watching this one tonight. So yeah, we like to joke that was my namesake. But yeah, those moments I think matter. Like horror creates these shared sort of emotional spikes, sort of like that fear and that tension, and I think that naturally bonds people very quickly. Like you know, sharing traumas is like very bonding. Like it's yeah, I think you just don't quite get that communal sort of intensity within other genres, not from what I've experienced anyway.
I completely agree. It's one of the reasons I love a horror film festival. You know, there's the built-in community there. And one of my favorite memories is at the Telluride Horror Show, walking out of the coffee table. And me and one other friend were like, that was amazing. We're so glad we saw that. That was so impactful. And then the rest of our group being like, I wish I had never watched this. And then just like walking down the street back to our hotels for the evening to like processing all of that together. Like there's nothing like that. So the next thing I want to talk about is breaking down barriers and welcoming people into our community. And how can we break down more barriers to bring in everybody that we possibly can? And I'd love to start with Lucy and Olivia on this.
Yeah, I think for us, like, I think with like the disability stuff, a lot of what we were thinking is like, it doesn't have to be that hard to make people feel more welcome. It just feels like it does. Like,
and I think, yeah, financially as well, people make it more difficult than it needs to be. I don't, we don't want to blame like, it's very hard and very expensive to put stuff on.
Yeah, we struggled for ages to find accessible venues, places that like had like a ramp to the door or had accessible toilets was like really difficult. But like when we were going to other people's screenings, and like we love the horror community, we like go to quite a lot of screenings, like we love all of the places that already exist in London, but like sometimes we'd struggle to sit through the films because we're just like sitting on a bench, and as two people with like chronic pain, I cannot sit on a bench. I cannot sit on a bench.
We just wanted comfy chairs. That's all we wanted.
So like the venue that we picked out, we specifically picked it out because it had sofas. And I think like things like that, like they seem really small, but actually like they make such a huge difference with people being able to like sit through the duration of a film. It's not that hard to make sure you have the subtitles on when you screen a film. And like I think we thought our idea was really niche. We thought like we were the only people that would want this. But then like so many people were like messaging us and saying like, oh my God, I really wish that this had existed before. Like I didn't know that like other people also used horror to like deal with the feelings they have around disability. I didn't know as many people saw themselves in these things as I did. And actually it's been such a well-received idea. So I think what we'd like people to take away from like what we've done is like, if you think your idea is too niche or too specific or too targeted to a specific like group of people, there will be people out there who are waiting for that to happen. They're already like anticipating it. They already really desperately need it. So go for it. I think like, yeah, it can be a struggle. It can be like a tiring thing to do. It is financially difficult, but like unless we all band together and try and make these spaces that we really wish we had, no one's going to make them for us.
Yeah. I think it's a great point that if you have an idea, someone else would probably also benefit from that. So like chase that weird niche idea that you have. It's probably not that weird or that niche. And something I was thinking about while you were speaking was asking people what they need, you know, like if somebody asked you putting on an event, hey, would subtitles be good, and you had an opportunity to say, yeah, that would be great for everybody, like just asking people who aren't us, how can we include you, is a great way, like a cheap way, a free way to break down a barrier there. And even just being asked feels like being included sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Katie, what do you think about how we can break down barriers?
I mean, I think openness and allowing people to kind of be seen and have voices, just to show people like, look, all kinds of people can get involved. As much as horror is very, very accepting in many ways, I have encountered a couple of people who are a little bit a little bit elitist, or a little bit like taking space that wasn't really theirs to take. I don't want to go any further than that, but you know, I've certainly been challenged with that at times. And I think just really encouraging, and I think events like this are absolutely fantastic for that. It's happening, right? So and it's kind of encouraging different people, different voices and different opinions and openness and discussion. And that's hugely, hugely important, just for everyone to kind of feel a part. You know, we live with enough feeling different and boundaries and feeling excluded and feeling like the weirdos. And so we don't really need it within our own communities too, you know? So I just think a real openness. And as cliche as it sounds, I always go with kindness. I know that's really cheesy, right? But, you know, one of my dear friends who sadly passed away a few years ago, he was a big community leader in queer activism and queer communities. And his thing was like always with kindness. When you embrace people, when you meet people, when you're forming community, face it with kindness, because people are struggling. We've all talked about how it helps us with our trauma, how it helps us with our mental health. A lot of us are drawn in because potentially we've been through stuff or we felt a little isolated. So I think just something as simple as that could be wonderful, you know?
I think kindness is a great point, and I don't think it's cheesy at all, especially when a lot of the community building happens online. And when people have a screen between them and the person they're talking to, it can give you a pass to be, you know, ruder than you might be in person. And so if we go, okay, no, this is a person on the other end who I'm talking to, let me take that, like, give them the benefit of the doubt, take the best version of what they said, meet them with kindness. That's an opportunity to bring someone into your community.
Absolutely, always. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Emily, what about you? How can we break down barriers?
So for us, I think inherently in zines, you know, DIY publications, they've always been such a huge part of like underground culture, you know. They offer a physical platform for all of our voices to be heard and seen without sort of relying on major publications or publishing houses. There's no gatekeeping here, like unlike traditional publications, zines aren't bound by like corporate interests or agendas. So regardless of background, experience or resources, like you can, you know, create a zine, you can create something which helps, you know, amplify that voice, and you know, as well as fostering genuine sort of connections within the community. I think that's why we're so passionate about, you know, the print zines and making sure that, you know, we're not gatekeeping here. Like you don't have to have a PhD to be published in our zine, you know. And one of my favorite things about running the Horror Collective with Ruth is I get so many submissions that have so many, you know, different perspectives and ideas, and that's it really. I think one of horror's strengths is that it doesn't really require sort of permission, right? So these, you know, zine screenings, small events, panels like this, you know, they're powerful sort of access points, and why we're so dedicated to small print publications and sort of keeping print alive, basically. Yeah, it's hard to do because it's very expensive, but yeah, we just want to keep doing it and have fun whilst we're doing it, and make sure that we're platforming diverse voices. And the more everyone sees themselves within horror spaces, the more the community grows, which is only a good thing. So yeah, I think just keeping things DIY,
Yeah. And looks like we've lost Ruth, but if we can get her back, we will. And here she's back. Hi, Ruth.
It's the ghosts.
Could be.
I think it was the doll. The doll's doing it.
Probably.
No, you seen she did move.
Oh no.
She does that.
I think that's where we mentioned before the connection between horror and punk rock, and that's no one needs to give you permission. Don't wait for permission. Exactly. If there's not a seat at the table, make your own table. Just do the thing you want to do. So Ruth, now that you're back, can I ask you, how should we be breaking down barriers in the horror community?
I didn't hear everything Emily said, but I think she really put it into context how I feel about it. And I feel like as soon as we started the first zine, the Tower, it was we thought we were just making it for our friends, during the pandemic. We thought, oh, it's just a way for us all to have a bit of a laugh and share our feelings about horror. And a big part of the first scene was about a sort of connection with the gaming world, especially sort of the tabletop RPG world, which obviously is a perfect way to break down those boundaries within an actual physical setting or even a virtual setting. And there's a great article in there about a RPG called Dread, which is based on like a Jenga tower, literally breaking down barriers. But yeah, I think that's a great example of how to essentially allow, especially neurodivergent and people who are maybe not super comfortable with social interactions in the conventional way. That's like a perfect way for these people to really experiment and be free with a new way of socializing and talking to each other. And like I mentioned earlier, the gaming world is a huge thing for me in where it starts a conversation, it breaks down those barriers, it really allows people to find a really niche subject. Obviously, we're all in horror, like it's already an incredibly niche subject, but when we start getting nicher and nicher, I feel like it really helps to bring people together in those really, really specific ways. Our zine, The Last Closet on the Left, has been just one of the most amazing projects to work on because, as I say, we're getting nicher and nicher, and to be able to have people who are within the LGBTQ plus community also express themselves about horror. Again, it's just allowing a really, really niche community who already feel very marginalized to be reached by a wider audience. Yeah, it's been amazing.
You're literally giving space to people who have been pushed out of horror spaces before and other spaces before. And so you are very purposefully saying, not only are you welcome here, but we want you here and we want to hear your perspective, and here's some pages for you. Go ahead and tell us what you think. And what could be more welcoming than literally saying, please come here.
Exactly.
And we'll even pay you.
We'll pay you for it, honestly. With that in mind, we do have a call for submissions currently. We're going to release a book. So yeah, please, head to the nottinghamhorrorcollective.co.uk. We have a call for submissions. We want your ideas. I will be reading them all. And yeah.
There you go. There's the invite to community right here. So Tori, what do you think about how we can break down barriers?
Yeah, I mean, you know, horror is definitely a space for outcasts. And I think a part of that is marginalized populations because we've often been outcast and othered by society. So it makes sense that like this is a space that draws a lot of people like queer, disabled, BIPOC, like women, like what have you. Like, you know, we're all just trying to find a space where we feel accepted and seen. So I think that having that mindset and realizing that also means that there's a lot of work. Like if you're, I don't know, like a straight white cis man, you might not always be thinking about how to make your space more inclusive for other populations because you probably haven't been othered. So you aren't really sure like what to look for. And I also come from a background of doing a lot of DEI work. And I think, you know, there's an aspect too of just it's always changing. We always have to be like okay with change and breaking down structures and barriers. Like y'all mentioned the Tower, which is one of my favorite like scary tarot cards because it's all about just like destroying structures that are no longer serving. And I think people are scared of that as well as transformation and making changes that are necessary. I think it's really easy for a lot of people to just think like, you know, they get defensive and are like, oh, okay, like now I'm like resistant to making those changes because I've been like called out on something I've like done wrong. And I saw recently online, there's been like a couple pieces circulating about how like when you're in community, you're going to mess up, you're gonna make mistakes, you're going to potentially do harm. And that's because, you know, that's like what every relationship is. Like you're gonna hurt someone, you're gonna like do something you don't mean to, whether it's intentional or not. And I think it's a lot of just like trying to be open and empathetic and listen. I think with the festival specifically, I want to be someone that people feel like they can come and talk to about things, like if we're doing something wrong or we can make things better. Like I've had people come to me about content warnings and trying to like label if something has strobing and like coming at like, you know, different accessibility angles that maybe we're not always thinking about. But that also includes making sure that you have people that represent diverse populations that can like bring that eye and help to expand the community even more. So it is a lot of work and money and time, but ultimately it's for the betterment of your community and everyone else. The more diverse it is, the stronger it is. And I think that's the most important work you can be doing for the horror community.
It's not as if we land on here, we've solved it. We've solved horror community. We did it. Everybody lock this in forever. We have to be constantly changing and growing, looking at, okay, we have good representation today, but do we have good representation tomorrow? And what does it mean to always be thinking about who are we representing, who's at the table and who's not, and how can we make them feel welcome? And you just have to be ready to always grow and change. So I think it's about time for us to start wrapping up, even though I think we could all go on for days about this topic. So as we're wrapping up, please let us know where we can find you online, call for submissions. That type of thing is great. Any events you have coming up that you want us to look out for, tell us all of that. So Tori, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Well, Brooklyn Horror Fest is accepting like submissions for films and shorts and features. So please submit to us. We would love to see it. We also have badges up for sale. So also please come and join us. One of the things I love about Brooklyn Horror Fest now is the last few years, we're just in one location. We're just at Nighthawk Williamsburg, which means that like after a film gets out, like there are bars and places all like a part of the building. And so everyone just gets to hang out and be in a space, and it makes it really easy to commune and be together. So please come join us. It's one of my favorite places. And then Yeah, I'm always doing work writing for different places. I don't know if I have any physical media releases I can announce at the moment, but I just had a piece come up the other day on Horror Press about the work of David Cronenberg and the representation of cults and cult mentality that I'm really excited about. And I have a piece coming up soon for ghouls that I'm also really excited about that kind of deals with some of these like traumatic ideas we've been talking about and how horror is an amazing space to process them.
Excellent. Thank you. Katie, where can people find you and your work, and what do you have coming up?
So on Instagram, I am mental health _monsters, put the underscore in there, mental health monsters. And I have got more talks coming up on the psychology of horror movies. So there is Brighton next week. Then I've got Cardiff, Bristol, Nottingham, other places coming up, Carlisle, I think. They keep coming in, see, to keep me busy. So I've got more dates kind of being announced. I'm working on some more talks at the moment. So I've got one that I'm just waiting for it to go live, for it to be announced, but it should be back in London talking more specifically around sexuality and horror. I'm working on a workshop around sort of coming of age in horror films. So lots of stuff around like Teeth and Jennifer's Body and Ginger Snaps and kind of really looking at stuff like Monstrous Feminine and The Abject and stuff like that. So I've got quite a few things I'm working on at the moment and an online workshop about psychology too. So I am keeping busy. I am moving around, but I say it's a pretty cool job that I get to go. And I've been talking about this stuff for free for years to just boring my friends and family. So now it's like, okay, now I get to go and do this all over the country. It's cool. So,
the dream.
The dream. So if you want to come and see me witter on about stuff, then do come along. And just a quick note, we say about sharing trauma. Actually, when you look at trauma work, it's about joining choirs or going to gigs, right? I do feel like watching a horror film in a group has the same kind of soothing experience. So I think providing these space, maybe we're all processing together. I kind of love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Emily, where can people follow you and your work?
So you can follow Ruth and I at the Nottingham Horror Collective, or one word. It's like the longest name ever on Instagram. We've got our website, the nottinghamhorrorcollective.co.uk, where you can buy all of our zines. We're also stocked in some places like the BFI, Rough Trade Nottingham, loads of places, Wolfwitch, Apothecary, all that kind of stuff. And growing number of lovely places that are supporting independent print. As I said earlier, we've got a call for submissions open for it's our first book that we're attempting. It's going to be a book of essays called Dead Pretty, Beauty in the Horror Genre. So whatever that means to you. We're looking for abstracts at the minute, so we're going to be choosing essays based on their abstracts, and you have until the 1st of March to get your abstracts in. It is a paid gig, please send us all your stuff. I'm also working with Final Girls Berlin Film Festival, which is a really cool film festival in Berlin, obviously, showcasing films by women and non-binary filmmakers. That is on March 4th to the 8th. And there are going to be select screenings online and in person at Berlin. Join that if you can. It's always a super fun festival. The people who create it are amazing. Just more film festival tips for you, as well as Huldra.
We love Final Girls Berlin here.
So cool.
Yes, absolutely. Ruth, where can people follow you? Anything you want to add to that?
All of the above of what Emily says. You can find our zines on our website as well, which you can find through the Instagram. We've also got a screening coming up. Are we allowed to tell everyone what we're screening yet, Emily?
Well, so what I've done is I've gone on our Instagram and just put loads of vague letterbox reviews. So go onto our Instagram and see if you can guess which film that we're screening. But we're doing it in collaboration with 1428 Publishing, which are our friends. They are also an independent publisher of horror books. We're doing it to celebrate their book Darkest Margins, which is about liminality and liminal spaces in horror media. So there'll be a panel discussion and a film, but see if you can guess which film we're going to be screening by the Letterboxd reviews, because
I love it. I love a puzzle. That's incredible. Lucy,
yeah, I mean, sorry. I was just
go
going to say
ahead,
one
Ruth.
more thing. You'll be able to find us most and best place to come and find us and get involved would be to choose us for this Halloween, because we put on a big Halloween party every year. It's Nottingham's best Halloween party, so please come along. We'd love to see you all. Sorry,
we're so humble, but yes, it is.
No.
It literally is. There's
All right.
no competition.
See if I can catch a flight. We'll see.
Please.
Lucy and Olivia, where can we follow you?
Instagram. It's just Sick Girl Films. You do the TikTok. I don't know anything about TikTok.
We're also on TikTok.
Yeah, apparently we're also on TikTok. Just under Sick Girl Films. Yeah. We have a screening of I Saw the TV Glow on the 15th of March, which we are very excited about and kind of dreading putting ourselves through watching that film again. But we want to do it because if you're talking about traumatic collective experiences, then like watching that film is a very good one.
I've never felt so...
What do you mean?
I think we saw a different side of each other after we came out that film. So very excited to see it with other people. That's on the 15th of March in London at Pie House Co-op in Deptford. And then we also have a fundraiser night of horror themed drag cabaret, and then an after party on the 9th of May. On the 9th of May, so that will be like going live very, very soon. We've got some very exciting people doing that, so yeah.
Also, if you want, you can buy my book of short stories about horror and body horror. It's called You Make Yourself Another. It was published by an independent publisher called Half Mystic, who are out of the US. You can buy it and you can get it ordered into any local bookshop. So
it's very good. I can confirm. It's very good. And it's very horrible.
It is very horrible. My mom read it and said it made her really upset. So that's the ringing endorsement you're going to get.
Yeah, put that on the blurb on the back.
Yeah.
This upset my mom. Wonderful. Well, those are all excellent invitations to community. You can follow me on all the socials at Ari_Hellraiser. You can follow Ghouls Magazine on Instagram. And also there's a TikTok. I also don't know anything about TikTok, but allegedly there's a TikTok. And so, if you can't make it to any of these in-person events, join our communities online, just hang out with us. We want to chat with you. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been a wonderful community, and the chat about community has been awesome. And our next panel is going to be about disturbing films and are we messed up? So I feel like, we were talking about niche and weird interests. So let's bring more of that. But thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And thanks for watching.
Thank you.